Welcome to Vigilant News for February 2nd, 2022, 2222. We've got hot news for you today. This is Justin from Stillness in the Storm, joined by my co-host Ryan Delarum from Underground Newswire. Ryan, how are we doing today?
It's great. It's a beautiful day. Happy to be here.
Got a bunch of news for you here and then some announcements. We have the mayor of Ottawa calling tow companies, and the tow companies with respect to the truckers rally not really giving the answer that they want to hear. Some good news there. We got Dwayne Johnson and Kevin James supporting Rogan and the ongoing Rogan controversy. We have shadowy left groups working to silence Rogan. Surprise, surprise. Another cancel cult moving forward. Fauci has failed again, and this time related to the lockdowns. We have Ghislaine Maxwell's lawyer again trying to assert the fact that she didn't get a fair trial. And ABC suspends Whoopi Goldberg. Wow, that's pretty encouraging.
More like Whoopsie Goldberg.
Yeah, exactly. And a bunch of other news for you. So before we get started with today's show, we got a couple announcements for you. Today is the last day for the pine pollen sale. As a matter of fact, we just got word that I think there's only a few dozen units left. So if you haven't already done so, go to the link in the description. Check out that Raw Pine Pollen. It's an amazing product. We actually have a testimonial I want to read about it to you guys. There's a woman who she's been suffering with lung issues for years, and she took this pine pollen and she had an amazing results. Let me find that. Here it is. I'm reading directly from the person, her grandson, that sent her the pine pollen. My grandma has struggled with the doctors who have called ongoing, my grandma has struggled with what the doctors have called ongoing pneumonia for over 10 years. After taking pine pollen alongside chaga mushroom extract, my grandmother has sounded so much better on the phone and is hardly coughing or clearing her throat. She has only a few nights of missed sleep compared to countless nights of lost sleep due to ongoing coughing. So in other words, she's been having these lung issues for years. She gets on the pine pollen, and within days, if not weeks, she experiences a profound result. So definitely check that out. We also decided to drop our news coverage to 3 nights a week, and that's to help us with all the other projects. We got a lot of awesome stuff going on, and it's going to help us do better quality work in general. So you can check that out. We'll be posting those, of course, on our Rumble, Stillness in the Storm, all the various platforms that we post to. And with that, let's go ahead and get into our first story for today, which is...
We have the mayor of Ottawa calling on tow companies to remove the freedom truckers, but run into a hilarious problem. So as the Where's Waldo Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, continued to hide out in an undisclosed location, or is it, due to fear for his, quote, safety, truckers continued to flock to Ottawa to protest in the embattled prime minister's ridiculous draconian COVID-19 mandates. So the mayor of Ottawa bravely stepped forward to take a stand against these truckers. Yes, Mayor Jim Watson called several towing companies and asked them to start towing trucks out of the city. Just one problem. According to various sources, every towing company had the same response. Oh, we've got COVID.
Yes.
Yeah, just like the prime minister.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So, yeah, that is pretty hilarious. Game, set, match. Truckers 1, Waldo 0.
Yeah, exactly.
Down here we have, oh, shoot. Accidentally clicked on it. Health officials are hinting at ending COVID restrictions, and not because of the truckers.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got a funny video here. I don't know if you want
to
sure.
Let's go for it.
Okay, I just sitting in my truck here warming up. I just got a bunch of nice fruit dropped off to me. I was just talking to this gentleman and this nice lady came by and had something to share with everybody.
You want me to say it?
Yeah. What just happened here?
Okay, I was just talking to a local that lives right here in Ottawa. He's been here for 30 years. He knows what's happening. And he told me that the mayor of Ottawa he called the tow truck companies to start towing these semis off from the streets. And every company said they have COVID.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Don't worry, Justin. We'll be gone by yesterday.
That was awesome.
Yeah, it's like, how long are these truckers going to be there? I think 2 weeks to flatten the curve.
Right, yeah, exactly. 2 weeks to flatten the curve is great, yeah. Oh, man.
So, yeah, that's pretty much all that there is to that. There's the article goes on, but you got the gist of it, basically.
Well, isn't that encouraging? You know, I was watching Tim Pool last night, and he was talking about all the recent changes that have been happening and to everything. And it occurred to me, is it possible that the reason they're making these changes is not necessarily because this is part of some deep state plan, but because there is actually ground being gained with respect to the freedom war?
I would say so. I mean, me and our friend Paul were just talking about this, where it's like everybody was expecting there might be some, kind of military intervention, but like maybe that timeline doesn't exist because enough people are coming forward and doing their job and fighting back against this instead of waiting for something to come save them. That's right. Exactly what we need.
Yes, exactly. I couldn't agree more. So it's encouraging news regardless. Well, with that, let's go to more encouraging news for today. Another Fauci failure. John Hopkins study finds Fauci ill-founded lockdowns only reduced mortality rates by 0.02%. And that's from a John Hopkins study. So they probably stretched the numbers as much as they could to get that result. At least that's my suspicion, just my opinion.
Yeah, they're like, oh, we can't have 0.1%. Let's bump it up to 0.2.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it doesn't sound good. The latest study from John Hopkins found that the initial Fauci economic shutdowns did little to reduce mortality rates during the COVID pandemic. They were very disruptive to economy and society at large. Maybe it's time to bring Fauci up on charges. I couldn't agree more. As a matter of fact, we did a whole study on the shocking truths behind masks. We didn't get into the lockdowns per se, but we talk about, how the ill effects and the destructive effects of these things. And it's tantamount to chopping your leg off because one day you might get diabetes. Like that's how bad it is.
I might as well just get rid of him now.
Yeah, exactly. Those of you who know what I was referencing, good job. Daily Mail reported the original coronavirus lockdown had little to no effect on pandemic death tolls in the US, UK, and Europe, a controversial report suggests. Economists who carried out a meta-analysis estimated that draconian restrictions first imposed in spring 2020, including stay-at-home orders, compulsory masks, and social distancing, only reduced COVID mortality rates by 0.2%. So that's like barely anything, obviously.
But it totally devastated local businesses across the country, families, all kinds of stuff.
Exactly. And, the question becomes, and this is where the law is corrupt, I would argue, is that when, from a general perspective, civil law, like our rights, if my rights get violated, I actually are owed damages because now when I can't exercise my rights, I can't derive value from the use of my rights. That's how it works. That's where money actually comes from, or at least at a very deep level of law. So is Fauci and all the people who push lockdowns with little to no beneficial effect, are they liable for damages that they caused on the people whose businesses and lives they ruined? Well, I think at a general level, yeah, but is the legal system going to recognize this? Probably not, because a lot of these people have immunity. And this gets into, some issues related to the legal system. So,
what I'd like to see after these midterms, if we get the right people in, assuming the right people exist, as you were saying, getting paid damages and such, how about instead of an infrastructure bill that's filled with pork and bloat that's going to line people's pockets and not go to infrastructure, why don't we have a fund the people bill? You know what I mean? If we're just going to create money out of thin air anyway, why don't we do it to help people instead of
You're spot on. Yeah, it's absolutely. Like, how much money do we spend on corporate welfare in this country and in the world? And how much money is actually invested into, improving cottage industry?
Well, we need to keep that gender training for the Pakistan military. I need to continue.
Yeah, exactly.
To fund that.
We really need to make sure that those guys aren't suffering with the oppression of our world. So, well, with that, what else we got?
This is interesting. I have some comments to make on it. We have Dwayne Johnson, Kevin James, and many more supporting Joe Rogan as criticism mounts. So you have Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, a veteran comedian, Kevin James, among the many entertainers lending support to Joe Rogan at his podcast, as his podcast comes under fire for spreading COVID-19 misinformation. Hundreds of scientists and healthcare professionals signed an open letter in January accusing the Joe Rogan Experience of being mass information events, except for most of those people weren't actual doctors. A lot of them were just students and just media talking heads. So last week, Neil Young asked Spotify to remove his music, and we all know how that turned out. Rogan responded on Sunday, sharing a video, which we also went over in a previous episode. And I think it was really well worded. He said, I like to stay sharp. I like to have conversations with different people with different viewpoints. That's what the show's all about. We're going to continue doing that. And I think it should continue that way.
Right. Yep.
Just because information is presented isn't dangerous in itself. People have to process it and come to their own.
Agreed.
Great stuff here, brother, The Rock wrote. Perfectly articulated. Look forward to coming on one day and breaking out the tequila with you. I would watch that.
Right.
James, star of King of Queens, and Paul Blart Mall Cop added, Joe, we go way back, and all these years I've known you to be nothing but objective and seeking the truth. Thank you. Love you, brother. That's good. That's the kind of stuff you like to see.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, Joe was just a weed that sprung up outside the mainstream media paradise.
Right.
You're doing a great job, Jewel wrote, singer Jewel. Keep it up. The electronic artist Cascade said, nailed it. Comedian Andrew Dice Clay wrote, so well said. I'm so proud of how you have handled it all. Stay strong, my friend.
No kidding. Dice Clay. That's cool.
Yeah. Still alive, I guess.
Yeah, I had no idea. His hair.
Yeah, maybe we can get him on.
Yeah, right. There we go.
Then we got Kat Von D, of all people, sharing emojis and praise hands and hearts emojis, while television announcer and former NFL quarterback Troy Aikman posted the 100 symbol. Marianne Williamson, spiritualist and former presidential candidate, said, I'm triple vaxxed, but unless they're standing for hate or calling for violence, banning someone's podcast is too much like burning a book to me. She added, Joe Rogan should talk on his podcast about whatever he damn well pleases. And of course, Republican politicians and conservative commenters also have leapt to Rogan's defense. You can scroll through the comments. There's a link in here. Meanwhile, more and more artists are following Neil Young's lead, leaving Spotify, including Joni Mitchell, Graham Nash, Nils Lofgren, I think he's the guitarist for Bruce Springsteen, and India Ari, whoever the hell any of those people are.
See, you wouldn't want to be in.
So I think this is interesting because it's for the first time in this whole culture war, we're finally seeing the quote unquote high society or celebrity world actually being forced to take a side. And it's cool to see this many people come to the side of like seeking truth. Doesn't necessarily mean everything that Joe Rogan's putting out is true. I happen to think it is, because the people that he had on his show are some of the most accomplished people in medicine today. But it's causing, it's usually you'll see like one person come out in favor of like these topics that we kind of tend to report on, and then they get immediately canceled and publicly humiliated. But
That's
now
right.
this is like half a dozen people at least coming out in favor of Joe Rogan. I think more and more are going to as this story goes on, because this is a developing story. So
Yeah, absolutely. And it's good news that people are actually taking that side. And it's revealing that the supposed, freedom fighters in music are just end up being card-carrying members of the establishment, basically.
yeah,
So,
funded by Blackstone and Pfizer.
mm,
That's what part of the rockin' in the free world makes you think of Pfizer and Blackstone?
yeah, exactly. Like basically the people who bought 50% of Neil Young's music just so happen to be like a degree of separation away from the manufacturers of the vaccines.
Oh yeah, I mean it's like just like the FDA and the Big Pharma, board members. It's like a revolving door.
Mhm.
The same thing is true with Blackstone and Pfizer. You had like president and somebody else like just cycling through. So
Right.
it's Pfizer is wearing Blackstone like a glove and making Neil Young do this stuff because they are basically his employer at this point.
Yeah, exactly. Quite revealing. Well, with that, let's turn to another piece of interesting news. We have Ghislaine Maxwell's lawyer say juror violated her rights to a fair trial. This is Scotty Dale, who is the juror in question. He revealed that he was sexually abused as a child, which prompted Ghislaine Maxwell's lawyer to request a retrial.
You blew it, buddy.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, I don't know. I don't think just merely having had been abused as a child is enough to declare your opinion on the trial a complete sham. I think there needs to be a little bit more granular analysis. But
Well, you think they would have asked that before the trial? You know what I mean?
It's a
It's
very
just
good
it's so
point.
fishy and it's so stupid and sloppy. It's like, what is it?
Exactly.
Is it intentional? Or is it just like straight up incompetence?
well, right. I mean, it's like being like the evidence shows that she, participated in human trafficking. And yet, because I agree with the evidence and I happen to have a history that you don't like, somehow my decision has no merit. That's not true at all. The decision has merit independent of my past and history in this situation. But,
Oh, he was abused. She's innocent.
yeah, exactly. So Maxwell's lawyers also said the juror corrupted their voir dire, excuse the horrible pronunciation, the process during jury selection when the judge and attorneys questioned potential jurors to determine if they could be impartial in the case. The claims were included in a Tuesday letter from Maxwell's attorney to Judge Allison Nathan. arguing why their motion for a new trial should remain sealed. Maxwell's attorney called for a new trial last month after the juror revealed that he had been sexually abused as a child in a number of press interviews after the trial. The juror, identified by his first and middle name, Scotty David, said he could recall how he answered questions and past sex abuse that were posed to potential panelists in questionnaire before the trial. David told Reuters that he, quote, flew through the questionnaire, but was sure that he answered the questions truthfully. So it sounds like they're trying to argue that in the pre-trial selection, he potentially didn't honor his obligations to be truthful and forthcoming. In Tuesday's letter, Maxwell's attorney said their retrial motion should remain under wraps until the court makes a ruling or after a potential hearing on the request. The defense team argued that unsealing the motion would give the juror, quote, an improper preview of information he does not have and should never have, or at the very least should not have at this point in the process. Among the information the lawyers are trying to keep from the jurors are his, quote, exact questionnaire responses that have not been made public. The motion will provide a roadmap for the defense examination of juror 50 and will allow him to plan out and tailor his responses, or even potentially spoliate evidence to paint himself and his conduct in the best possible light. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. It seems like there's more scuttlebutt of the fact that the trial might actually be redone, which will be interesting for sure. But, you know, all said and done, it just gives a whole other opportunity for the media cycle to cover this and raise awareness about the actual facts in the case. So that's good news.
Yeah.
All right. What do we got next?
This is a continuation on the Rogan story. We have shadowy far-left groups behind the effort to silence Joe Rogan. Some of these same groups we went over in our exposure of who funds the International Fact-Checking Network. These groups are like a who's who of the foundations behind the corpo political marriage to create a criminal deep state in politics, basically. So you have Rolling Stone, reporting on it. And there's this dossier that all these people signed, these 270 doctors, which are not doctors, as we mentioned. In the dossier, we showed you how very few individuals that signed the petition were in fact doctors or had qualified expertise in the field. Here's a quote from it. Are you seeing all of those blaring corporate press headlines targeting Joe Rogan this weekend, reporting on a letter from 270 doctors, which described the famous podcaster as, quote, menace to public health? Well, it turns out that the real arbiters of misinformation are the individuals behind the letter itself, and they are being helped along by a corrupt corporate media that is misrepresenting the credentials of its signatories. Also, that media is on its last leg. I know that Rachel Maddow is taking a suspicious leave, and if any of you were familiar with the 17 Military Insider Project that was pretty popular a couple of years back, there was a list that was dropped of news anchors and talking heads who were found to be complicit with the DNC and the Clinton campaign with the whole Durham investigation. So it's odd that she's stepping down now. I think maybe Durham's making moves in the background. Unsurprisingly, Spotify chose its star podcaster over Neil Young, but pledged to do more to combat misinformation. So it's kind of like, we'll placate you, but we're going to keep our cash cow.
Right.
In reporting that the vast majority of doctors behind the anti-Rogan letter were not in fact medical doctors, the dossier found, paradoxically, the disseminators of this petition are guilty of the very misinformation label that they've attached to Rogan. In fact, neither of the two reported co-authors of the letter, Jessica Rivera, Ben Rain, possess medical degrees. Rivera holds a master's degree and Rain is a PhD academic who researches psychiatry. Rivera is currently the Science Communication Lead and Pandemic Prevention Institute, a project of the far-left Rockefeller Foundation, which I'm sure you guys are familiar with them. She was previously associated with the Atlantic's COVID-19 tracking project, and ironically enough, one of these groups, the Emerson Collective, owns the Atlantic. Who sits on the Emerson Collective? Steve Jobs' wife and Ghislaine Maxwell's good friend. So then you have this Chan Zuckerberg initiative. That's Mark Zuckerberg and his wife, and who knows, they're also attached to the Rockefellers. And then you have the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, which I'm not familiar with. Rivera, who has accused Joe Rogan of spreading misinformation about mRNA shots, has spread plenty of misinformation on COVID-19 herself, including the pseudoscientific claim that vaccine-induced immunity is better than natural immunity.
Yeah.
Some of these tweets are damning. Like, you can't take these back.
Yep.
And it's odd that these tweets were literally a little more than a month ago. Vaccine-induced immunity greater than immunity from natural infection. Please get vaccinated, even if you've had COVID-19. Do not risk reinfection. How many people are at their hand in the cookie jar?
Tell me about it. Yeah.
And then, of course, you have Rolling Stone, this fake institution that used to have some kind of stuff going, arguably, but I think even as far back in the days of Hunter Thompson, they were compromised. But
right.
In the piece, Rolling Stone provides more intel to readers on the petition that generated endless sensational headlines. Key additional players in disseminating the petition are supposed experts in the form of Dr. Katrine Wallace and a college student and TikToker named Abby Richards.
What, really?
Yeah, wait till you see this. So instead of like Dr. Robert Malone, who created the mRNA vaccines, and the most published epidemiologist, cardiologist of all time, Dr. Peter McCullough, you got a TikToker and this fake doctor woman here, Dr. Katrine Wallace, who's just like a bubbly, hip, follow the science. I'm not, like,
oh my God,
they're more credible. Trust this person.
Yeah, clearly.
Wallace holds a PhD in epidemiology and is currently an adjunct assistant professor in Illinois. She has no background in vaccines or any relevant fields related to COVID-19. A brief overview of her published work finds it largely involves publishing research papers on the urinary tract, per Google Scholar. She has spent the COVID years publishing academic papers almost exclusively about prostate cancer and ovarian cancer. Far from being a communicator of complete scientific truths, Wallace has spread plenty of her own misinformation on mRNA vaccines. She has claimed that individuals have a 90% decreased risk of infection after the shots, which we know is fundamentally not true. Just look at Israel.
That's right.
She has also suggested that COVID injections prevent the infection entirely. We now know neither claim is remotely true. So yeah, I would recommend combing through this article. There's a lot of good stuff in there for y'all to read. And I think this is just like, I think this whole Joe Rogan thing is a very huge catalyst for the awakening, I should say.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's creating a situation where somebody who's very relatable and identifiable and, extremely popular, which has a lot of social influencing power, is creating a dividing line in the sand. And although I don't have seen any polls yet, I wager to guess that the majority of people who know about the Joe Rogan issue are siding with him, probably the vast majority. So that's good. All right, well, for another piece of good news, we're just loading it up today.
Yeah.
ABC suspends anti-Semitic Whoopi following Holocaust remarks. So I haven't actually seen the remarks themselves, so hopefully they got them in here, because I really like to take a look.
Man.
ABC just announced Whoopi Goldberg has been suspended from ABC's The View for 2 weeks following her comments on the Holocaust. So Whoopi Goldberg was basically quarantined for her ridiculous comments about the Holocaust. 2 week suspension. Interesting. Effective immediately, quote, effective immediately, I am suspending Whoopi Goldberg for 2 weeks for her wrong and hurtful comments. While Whoopi has apologized, I have asked her to take time to reflect and learn about the impact of her comments. Kim Godwin, president of ABC News, said in a statement. Yeah, does that really do anything? This is one of these things. It's like, I was listening to Dr. Epstein today, Robert Epstein on Rogan, and he was talking about how Google apparently shut down the entire internet for 40 minutes in 2009. And this has been well documented. Ooh. And the guy who did it, I might have a little bit of these facts, not so great, but the guy who did it only had like a $25,000 fine, and Google had like a $25,000 fine. So this is peanuts. It's nothing. You think Whoopi's really like shaking in her boots because of a 2 week vacation she just got?
Yeah.
The entire ABC News organization stands in solidarity with our Jewish colleagues, friends, family, and communities. Just more identity politics pandering. These people, they don't really care about these people. It's all just for parenting.
Standing in that solidarity.
That's right. So let's see. I'm curious okay, here we go. Let's take a listen. If y'all haven't heard it, and if you have heard it and you're upset, I apologize. We're going to listen to it again, but I think it's important.
Well, also, if you're going to do this, then let's be truthful about it, because the Holocaust isn't about race. No, it's not about
Maybe
race.
ethnicity.
It's,
Well,
no, it's about
a different race.
But it's not about race. It's not about
What
race.
is it about?
Because it's about man's inhumanity to man. That's what it's about.
But it's about white supremacy.
Well, but it's not about
race.
But these are two white groups of people.
Well,
How do we have to
black people
see them as white
And then
But
they
you're
have
missing the
homosexuals.
point. You're missing the
Wow.
point. The minute you turn it into race, it goes down this alley. Let's talk about it for what it is. It's how people treat each other. It's a problem. It doesn't matter if you're black or white, because black, white, Jews, everybody eats each other. So if you're uncomfortable, if you hear about mouse, should you be worried? Should your child say, oh my God, I wonder if that's me? No, that's not what they're going to say. They're going to say, I don't want to be
Trying to cut her off.
like that.
I think so, yeah.
I want to be cool.
Yeah, most kids, they don't want to be cool.
No, they don't. And we're living in an era where people are comparing vaccine cards to the yellow stars, where people are comparing vaccinations to what Anne Frank went through. Yeah. So it is necessary for kids to learn about
To learn about man's inhumanity to man, however it exposes itself. I have to cut you off.
I just want to say that mouse was banned and it flew to top 20 of Amazon's rules charts.
Yes.
People, the more you ban it, the more we want to read it.
What an interesting comment. That's actually not what I thought she was going to say. I thought it was going to be something more overt, but let's put it this way. In an age where even mentioning the Holocaust is essentially a way to get yourself painted with a target, she should have known better. Like, if anybody's going to know to be careful about being canceled, it'd be her. So.
She probably thinks she's uncancelable.
Right, exactly. So, this is one of these things where it feels good from a certain perspective, I suppose, or it can be considered a victory because somebody who is what we might say the queen of spreading like divisiveness and identity politics finally got a little taste of her own bitter cup. So, all right. Well, with that, let's get into some rapid fires.
Yeah.
So what do you got? You want to do
I
first?
added a couple extra here too.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Because there's only 3, so I added a couple more.
Okay.
We have top doctor calls on employers to reinstate unvaccinated workers and apologize for firing them, which is amazing.
Yeah,
I think
no
that
kidding.
should definitely be the case. Then we have Biden is doomed. 50% of likely voters now support impeaching the POTUS.
Nice. Okay.
Also crazy. And then to follow that up, we have Facebook bans American trucker convoy to DC 2022. And it's a page with 139,000 followers.
Wow.
So,
Ridiculous. Yeah, that's a lot of people. Well, I mean, this is something not new. Facebook loves doing this. It's like, oh, we're all about free speech. We're all about discussion and social interaction, but just not if the things we don't agree with them.
Can you imagine if what happened in Ottawa was taking place in Washington,
Oh my
D.C.?
God. Yeah, I would be.
You thought the insurrection was.
I know. You can only imagine the media alarmism that's going to spread if that actually gets pulled off. Well, supposedly they're actually coming to DC. They're going to start in California and move to DC. That's what I watched a video about that. As a matter of fact, I think it's actually in here somewhere. Yeah. Here, I'll just play this real quick for people. It won't take like 30 seconds.
So just know that America is next. We've given y'all time. We've given y'all heads up. And whoever joins it, joins it. And it will start in California and it will end in DC. And we're going to stay there just like Canada's doing. We're done with the mandates. We're done with the government telling us what to do. We will continue and we will follow, just like the rest of the world, on these trucker protests. And they will be 100% legal. They will abide by the law.
There you go. I'm sure it keeps going on, but there you have it. And we also have Let's Go Brandu. Freedom Convoy delivers massive haul of hilarious memes.
Nice.
So we're actually going to cover some of that on the mega stream tomorrow. So just a little teaser. Yeah. So with that in mind, don't forget to check out the mega stream tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to have a big old stream for you. Lots of awesome news, information, spiritual discussion, all that great stuff.
Not only that, but we're also going to, their friends over at Journey to Truth are going to be premiering an interview with us tomorrow night.
That's right. So
check that out.
Keep an eye out for that. We'll pop it in the links from our videos here when we get it up. So Yeah, so with that, thank you so much. Don't forget, by the way, we're going to be doing super chats now. We actually have the ability to do super chats. So if you go to Rumble, you go on Rumble Rants, you pop in your question. We're going to pull from those questions and answer them at the end of the show. So don't forget to do that. And we appreciate all the support. We've had a lot of people send some generous donations. Can't thank you so much. Can't thank you enough. Thank you so much. All right, with that, take care. We'll see you on the next one.